At the edge of dawn, Rome was already awake. Before the markets stirred, before the senators gathered, before the city's marble heart began to beat, the empire depended on men who lived far from comfort and even farther from safety. In the age of Roman power, glory was never simply inherited. It was earned in silence, in discipline, and in the long shadow of war. For most soldiers, the road to the legions did not begin with honor. It began in poor villages, in fields worked by calloused hands, in families who measured life by harvests, debt, and survival. The empire promised what ordinary life could not: regular pay, daily bread, the chance to rise, and the faint but powerful hope that service might turn obscurity into purpose. So before sunrise touched the camp, a young recruit would wake to iron, leather, and duty. Around him, the camp breathed with routine. Weapons checked, straps tightened, bread broken, watered wine shared. This was how Rome began each day, not with ceremony, but with preparation. As the sun climbed higher, the true nature of a Roman soldier's life revealed itself. War was only one part of his existence. Long before he ever faced an enemy, he was shaped by repetition, by exhaustion, and by the relentless demand for perfection. Every march hardened the body. Every drill sharpened the instincts. Every command erased a little more of the man he had once been, replacing him with something Rome could depend on. The legions did not trust courage alone. They trusted order, obedience, and the discipline to hold formation when fear began to spread. A soldier learned to move as part of something larger than himself, to raise his shield not only for his own survival, but for the men beside him. Yet even within that machine of iron and routine, there remained private moments. The weight of a glance, the brief comfort of firelight, the silent understanding between comrades. Rome did not simply train men to fight. It trained them to endure, to build, to obey, and above all, to carry the empire forward on their backs. Then came the hour every soldier understood, even if he feared it in silence. Training had prepared the body, but battle tested something deeper. When the lines closed and the noise of war swallowed every thought, survival depended not on rage, but on discipline. The shield had to stay locked. The line had to hold. In those first terrible moments, the battlefield became a world of dust, iron, and instinct, where commands were half heard and death could arrive between heartbeats. A Roman soldier did not fight as a lone hero. He fought as one piece of a living wall, bound to the men beside him by necessity and trust. And when the clash was over, victory brought no celebration loud enough to silence what remained. The camp changed after battle. Fires burned lower, voices softened. Men cleaned their blades, counted the missing, and sat beside one another in the strange quiet that follows violence. Rome demanded triumph, but its soldiers carried the cost within them long after the shouting ended. When darkness settled over the camp, the empire felt farther away, and home felt closer than ever. In the quiet between orders and alarms, a Roman soldier was left alone with the thoughts he could silence no longer. A letter from home, a familiar name, the memory of a distant field, or the sound of a mother's voice could cut deeper than any blade. By night, the camp softened. Torches flickered in the wind, low laughter drifted between the tents, and men who had stood unbroken in battle lay awake beneath canvas roofs, staring into the dark and wondering how many more roads still waited ahead. Yet Rome never allowed stillness to last. At first light, the march began again. Armor was fastened, shields were lifted, and the column moved forward with the slow certainty of a machine built for conquest. Beyond the next ridge, another trial might already be waiting. And so the soldier stepped back into line, carrying fatigue, memory, duty, and fear in equal measure. While behind him, the campfires faded, and before him, the frontier opened again.
Now the discipline of Rome was tested in its most brutal form. When the signal to advance was given, the battlefield erased all illusion. Dust rose, shields crashed together, and the ordered rhythm of training met the chaos of fear, pain, and survival. In those violent moments, a soldier no longer fought for glory alone. He fought for breath, for balance, for the shield at his side, and for the men whose lives depended on his own resolve. Rome's strength did not come from individual fury, but from cohesion, from the unbroken line, from the refusal to yield when the world seemed to collapse in noise and blood. And yet, even victory carried its own burden. When the enemy fell back and the shouting began to fade, what remained was not triumph in its purest form, but exhaustion, silence, and the heavy knowledge of what battle always demanded. Around the campfires that night, soldiers spoke more quietly, looked longer into the flames, and understood that every hard-won success had been purchased at a human cost. Such was the cost of empire.
After battle, Rome revealed its other face. Beyond the charge and the clash of iron came the slower reckoning, where victory gave way to pain, fatigue, and remembrance. In the gray light of dawn, soldiers moved through the wounded, carried the broken, cleaned their blades, and tried to quiet the noise still echoing inside them. This was the silence no triumph could erase. Here, a man measured the cost not in territory gained, but in comrades lost, in faces that would never again gather around the evening fire. And when at last he found a moment alone, home returned with unexpected force. A letter, a memory, the thought of distant fields and familiar voices reminded him that beneath the armor, he remained human. Yet even grief had its limits in the Roman world. Night would fall, the watchfires would burn low, and the frontier would wait in darkness beyond the palisade. So the soldier stood awake beneath the moon, suspended between two realities, the life he had left behind and the empire that still demanded more from him till morning.
By now, the soldier's life was no longer measured only by battle, but by endurance. Dawn after dawn, he rose to the same ritual of iron, leather, dust, and command, each morning reminding him that Rome was held together not only by conquest, but by discipline without end. Inspection, orders, and the endless march along stone roads revealed the deeper truth of imperial power. Armies did not simply win empires, they sustained them. Beyond the noise of combat lay the harder labor of carrying shields across vast frontiers, obeying without hesitation, and becoming part of a force larger than memory or desire. Even moments of pause could not fully break that spell. A brief drink by the roadside, a glance toward distant hills, the shared silence between comrades. All of it passed quickly beneath the weight of duty. By sunset, as the fort appeared below them and the sky burned red above the frontier, the soldier understood that each road he walked was both a path of survival and a chain binding his life ever more tightly to Rome forevermore. At the outpost, the empire took on a different shape. Here, the soldier was reminded that his purpose extended far beyond the battlefield. Within timber walls and stone yards, the work of preserving Rome continued in quieter forms, repairing shields, counting wages, honoring the standards, and restoring roads and defenses that kept distant provinces bound to a single power. The fort was not merely a refuge. It was a machine of order, a place where discipline survived even in moments of rest. Coins in the hand, bread on the table, a letter scratched into wax by lamplight. These small rituals gave shape to a life otherwise consumed by duty. Yet even here, peace was never complete. Every repaired plank, every sharpened blade, every prayer before the imperial eagle pointed toward the same truth. The soldier's body served as both weapon and tool of empire. And when evening returned and he stood upon a rampart looking out at the frontier, he could see that Rome endured not only through victory, but through the endless labor of men like him. In the final measure, the soldier's legacy was written not only in battles won, but in the world he helped hold together. By the time the roads were laid, the walls repaired, and the milestones set into the earth, his labor had become part of something that would outlast his name. This was the deeper promise of Rome, that ordinary men, drawn from villages and hardship, could be absorbed into an empire that transformed their struggle into permanence. Yet that permanence was never free. It was built through fatigue, sacrifice, memory, and the quiet acceptance that glory often belonged to history more than to the men who created it. As civilians, traders, and children moved safely along the roads soldiers had carved from dust and stone, the meaning of service became clear. Empires were not sustained by ambition alone, but by lives given to order, protection, and endurance. And so, at the edge of the frontier, as daylight faded and the horizon widened into silence, the soldier remained what Rome had made him, guardian and sacrifice still.